Thank you for joining the 2022 VHL Warrior Call. Stay tuned and enjoy the music. The program will start shortly.
Hi, my name is Allison Shearer, and I'm here on behalf of my group, the Allison Shearer Quartet. We are so honored to take part in the 2022 Warrior Call event benefiting the VHL Alliance. We hope you'll enjoy our music while we wait for the event to begin. For those of you who missed me at the beginning, my name is Allison Shearer, and I'm here on behalf of my group, the Allison Shearer Quartet. I hope that you enjoyed our performance and are ready for the 2022 Warrior Call event. I'm now going to pass it over to Chandra Clark, Executive Director of the VHL Alliance, who's going to kick off tonight's event.
Thank you, Allison. What a great way to get pumped for the incredible program we have planned this evening. Thank you for joining the VHL Alliance for the 2022 Warrior Call event. My name is Chandra Clark, and I am the Executive Director of the VHL Alliance. We are so thankful to have you with us this evening. You are in store for a fantastic event. We appreciate all of your support and encouragement as we plan this virtual event. We have VHL patients, caregivers, family, friends, and supporters joining us tonight from all over the world. To start us out, I would like to turn the camera to New York City, where we have a sommelier joining us to share some wine pairings with us before we begin the program.
Today I'd like to share with you one of my favorite styles of white wine as we enter these spring and summer months. These wines are known as aromatic white wines. These wines all have a range of intensity, taste, and sweetness that make them very unique in the wine world. The most common styles that you may be familiar with are going to be Riesling, Gewürztraminer, and Albarino, but there are a few lesser known styles that I'm quite fond of, such as Muscat of Alexandria, which is typically known as Zabibo, and Torrontés, commonly found in South American countries. All of these wines have one stylistic trait in common. They have a high level of terpenes. Terpenes are a compound that are commonly found in flowers. So these wines share a lot of aromatic similarities with roses, geraniums, orange blossom flowers, makes them just very vibrant and unique as a style of white wine. These wines are incredibly versatile when it comes to pairing them with different styles of food. The lighter, drier, often more acidic styles pair really well as an aperitif with different styles of cheeses, charcuterie, anything with a touch of fat that the acidity really cuts through. As you move into the styles that are slightly more aromatic, maybe have a touch of sweetness, pair really well with Southeast Asian and Indian food. That touch of sweetness really kind of helps to cut the often spicy style of this food, but the aromatic floral compounds pair really well with the realm of spices and fresh herbs that are often found in these dishes and can really not only pair with the food, but expand and really just make it more of an experience when you have these cuisines. Today I'd like to touch on two specific styles of my favorite aromatic white wines. The first being Riesling. This specific style is from Mosel in southern Germany near France. It's a cooler, higher elevation area, and this allows for the wines to become a little more delicate, lower in alcohol, and thus pair really well as an aperitif. A specific aromatic white wine that I'm very fond of is Zabibo. It's the Muscat of Alexandria that I mentioned. This wine is most commonly found in the southern Italian island of Sicily. This is a Mediterranean climate, very warm, very much near the coast. Typically this wine was originally found in northern Africa and then migrated around the world, but Sicily is truly the home to this wine these days. Zabibo is a bit more rich in style than the Riesling I mentioned before this. This wine you'll often see in a variety of sweetness. So it can be a great starter paired with a meal or an aperitif, but you'll also find it in very, very delicious, succulent dessert wines. When shopping for aromatic white wines in your local wine shop, do keep in mind that they can vary greatly in style, flavor, and sweetness. Don't hesitate to engage your local wine shop and ask them questions to try and find the perfect style for your occasion. These wines are great for everyday drinking, but they can also be amazing wines that are perfect for collecting and aging in your home cellar. Thank you for allowing me to join you this evening. I hope you enjoyed learning more about wine, and I will pass you over to Lily Wokenhandle.
Thank you, Alex. My name is Lily Wokenhandle, and I am thrilled to be co-chairing the 2022 Warrior Call with Mark Palanche, who you'll hear from a little later this evening. We held our first Warrior Call event in 2021 as a way to connect with the VHL community and highlight the incredible doctors, researchers, and scientists that are working tirelessly to advance VHL research and find a cure. I want to thank you again for joining us and hope you enjoy the program that we have prepared for you this evening.
I hope you all are enjoying yourselves so far. Now we bring you to our feature event of the evening, what you all have been waiting for. Dr. Othon Iliopoulos, Associate Professor, Harvard Medical School and Center for Cancer Research at Massachusetts General Hospital. Dr. Iliopoulos is also the Clinical Director of the von Hippel-Lindau Disease Familial Renal Cell Cancer Program at Massachusetts General Hospital. We are thrilled to spend some time with Dr. Iliopoulos this evening to share more about his incredible career and support the advanced treatment for VHL. What model organisms do you use to answer your research questions? How are they advantageous?
It's a very interesting question. We use different model organisms at different periods of time. We use primarily human cells that they're coming from VHL patients or with patients with renal cell carcinoma or hemangioblastoma. A lot of times we transplant these cells in the mice, in the animals, to mimic the human disease. And this is the most frequent model we're using. We also try to create mice that they develop naturally the human disease, although this has been much more arduous and complicated type of process. In the past, we use a genetic approach also to understand how the VHL gene interacts with all the other biochemical pathways in the cells. And we used flies, fruit flies, the Drosophila, and we also used zebrafish that has missing VHL, and we show that it recapitulates the human disease in many aspects. One important thing to emphasize is that we're not a model organism laboratory. We pick up the question. And in order to answer the question, we follow every technique, biochemical, genetic, or organismal, that we actually think that's going to get us close to the question. They're advantageous because you can answer questions much more quicker and you can manipulate these model organisms. The ultimate, of course, goal is to find out treatments and confirm all these observations that we made or hypotheses that we have in the animals by going to a human trial, as we have done very recently, and see the results in the patients.
Wow, wow. So tell us about your VHL clinic at MGH.
Yeah, well, I'm very proud of this clinic. I'm very happy that we created. So this is a multidisciplinary clinic created at MGH. Means that people from all the specialties that are required to treat a VHL patient in a comprehensive way are involved. Geneticists, medical oncologists, urologists, neurosurgeons, neurologists, endocrine surgeons, ophthalmologists specialized in the retina. We all came together and we created this center, this VHL multidisciplinary clinic. We don't only take care of VHL patients, we take care of patients that they have any genetic predisposition to develop kidney cancer or other diseases that are along with kidney cancer, like pheochromocytomas and paraganglioma. So in the big umbrella, this is a VHL hemangioblastoma paraganglioma type of center. It wants to take care of the whole population that has germline mutations leading to kidney cancer. The clinic is now 20 years old. It's a huge center of reference from New England, from upstate New York, sometimes from the West Coast, and we have also international patients that they come in the clinic. all over these years, we developed a consensus in how to treat these patients. So the physicians that are involved, and the nursing that's involved, and geneticists that are involved, and the social workers that are involved, talk very often about how to develop protocols to approach the patients. I think it's something that it's needed for every rare disease. There are clinics in the MGH like the Tuberous Sclerosis Center, the Neurofibromatosis Center. We like to bring together people with this expertise. And the amazing thing is that once you create these centers, you realize how much needed they are, and you discover patients that they are in need for this type of comprehensive and very specialized care all over the place. So I enjoyed it tremendously over these years. It has been a strong work, but it brought us very close to many subspecialties in the MGH, and we discovered very talented colleagues that they contributed to this clinic a lot.
Wonderful. Well, it's an honor to be here with you in your lab today. So could you share with us what a day in your lab looks like?
Yeah, that's the lab. All around here is the lab. So a day in the lab. Fortunately, I'm the one who today talks about the day in the lab, and not the lab people that are supposed to take a day in the lab because they're out for a meeting today. I think that people are coming here very excited, and I'm coming in the lab very excited. I used to spend in the lab, kind of days without end. Now, admittedly, I have a little bit less time in the lab because, be pulled away from some clinical duties. Everybody has his own project. It's a very friendly atmosphere. It's a very collaborative atmosphere. And we're actually very lucky to be in the MGH Cancer Center. The laboratories around us have expertise in different models and in different techniques. And it's amazing to be immersed in this community. We come here to answer questions. Research, as you all know, is not a linear experience. There is a lot of frustration, there's a lot of troubleshooting, but not infrequently, you are going to see people being extremely excited about a new discovery that they have done. We attend conferences. We have almost a conference a day. We had lab meetings today. MGH Cancer Center is a highly interactive, highly collaborative environment that somebody can see from our publications. We keep a very civil atmosphere in the lab, and one of my, highest points of satisfaction, and I take pride of it, is that people that graduate the lab, they go to have their independent research, or they have to go develop their career, and I think it's my duty and actually my biggest pleasure to see these people and support them and make sure that I highlight them all the time, so I recognize their contribution. I used to joke and tell to my friends that the day I'm going to be in my deathbed, I will remember, besides my friends and close family members, the very few contributions, important contributions they make to science, but most than anything, I will remember very much all the people that they passed by the lab, and now they're chairmen in different departments and they direct their own operations. We're still good friends with them, and it's an incredible satisfaction to see them graduating.
So as a researcher of the VHL gene, could you tell us a little bit about what's the more difficult aspect, and then what is the most rewarding?
Well, as I said, the research is not linear. It has a lot of effort. We create one hypothesis, a week. We used to say that, and I encourage people to actually tell ideas. Most of the time, bubbling out ideas, it will prove to be wrong. But among all this discourse, this dialogue, this excitement, there's going to be a peril that comes from time to time. So a lot of times the ideas are wrong, and this is kind of the difficult part. One of the most challenging things, and unfortunately very necessary things, is funding. Uh, we we cannot think and write papers. We cannot go to the library. We need to create a small reality, to create an experiment, and that requires all this equipment that you see around, requires all these reagents that you see around, it requires the salary of the people to work for it. So research is very expensive, but I think it's one of the best investments of philanthropic, of federal money, and it turns big gains in the end. So funding has been always a challenge that we have to face, and there's many times that I wish that I don't have to, honestly, write all these grants, the one after the other, but spend all this time in actually either doing the experiment or reading and thinking. Every job has its difficult aspect, but given this opportunity, I would like to actually say that the support that the patients have shown and the support of the VHL Alliance to our lab has been very important. We're developing a wonderful new insight into how hemangioblastomas are happening because of a grant that we took from the VHL Alliance and supported completely one very talented postdoc, Evi Konstadakou, who works in the lab, and you're going to hear soon from her about her research. I also would like to say at this point that I would appeal for an increase in federal funding. I think that since the war on cancer that President Nixon launched, many years ago, I don't think that we have seen any bigger returns in investment and quality of life and happiness of families and people than the money they spend generally in medical research.
Wow. So how do you evaluate your success in research?
An old mentor of mine, David Livingstone, used to say that you are successful if you make a discovery that everybody else works on afterwards. So this is one measure of success, to work in something important. And the most important success is to be able to translate what we find in the lab in something meaningful for the patients. It's a longer route, but we have examples of this lately, the belzutifan medication, the Welireg, but I think I feel successful every time that we understand a new and novel aspect of the biology of the VHL disease or cancer in general, and in the same time we're one step closer, visibly closer to actually cure the VHL disease and renal cell carcinoma. And this is not theoretical. All these small steps happen. So I should say that I'm one of the lucky ones. I had a very rewarding professional career. I saw things coming very close to the patients.
So with that, Welireg is a major success as a researcher, of course, for VHL patients in the community. So tell us about your involvement in Welireg.
Yeah, so we have been involved in the basic science and we have been involved in the clinic too. Welireg is the outcome of 20 years of research in the field of VHL from several laboratories. We should mention the laboratory of my former mentor, Bill Kaelin. We should mention the laboratories of the other co-Nobel laureates, Peter Ratcliffe and Greg Simenza. We should mention Richard Bruick at Southwestern Medical School, who actually was the first that crystallized the interaction of the HIF1 alpha with HIF2 alpha. But we arrive at VHL, one following the steps of the other person. We built up a basic understanding of the biology of VHL. was one of the persons that I think I was probably the first person who linked VHL with angiogenesis in the Nature Medicine paper, and this work has been actually mentioned in the Nobel Prizes literature, and I think that we started from there and then figure out HIF and then figure out, how to target HIF. It's a collective work, so I contributed my small pieces towards this end. And in the clinical arena, I think that all this VHL clinic that we built over these years was ready for a medication. For many years, we were treating patients with surgery, and we were lucky enough now to have the WellReg. So we contributed in the design, and we contributed many patients to this trial that led to the FDA approval for of this medication. It's a very successful, very rewarding trip. I started looking at VHL, from identifying the protein that was unknown, and 20 years later, I have the satisfaction as a medical oncologist to provide a medication to my patients and see the tumors shrinking. It's not the end of the trip, it's the beginning of the new phase. But the life for the VHL patient is going to definitely be different now.
Wow, that's incredible. So where do you see your research and program in the next 5 years? If you could just give us a little bit of a glimpse.
Yeah, I think that the more we understand how VHL works, the more questions we have to face. Again, I'll quote very humbly some really giants of philosophy and science. Pascal used to say that the knowledge is like a sphere. The bigger the sphere and the knowledge, the bigger the contact with the unknown. So we have a lot of work ahead of us. I see that we need to understand why WellReg works or doesn't work in some patients. We need to figure out how we develop resistance to this medication. On a fundamental science level, we need to understand why some patients with the same mutation have a very mild disease, but other patients with exactly the same mutation have a very aggressive disease. We have to understand all these modifiers, as we say, of the disease severity, and then we need to build up on cancer metabolism, and this is an area that my lab has been invested a lot in understanding how we can add to the WellReg and kill the cells and make them essentially disappearing and not dependent on the presence of the belzutifan. This is the basic science, we'll also in the future need to understand in the clinic how to use WellReg. WellReg is available, but we don't know how to use it best. Do we give it continuously? Do we give it intermittently? Do we increase the doses? Do we decrease the dose if the tumor shrinks? All these are open clinical questions, and I hope very soon as the chair of your clinical advisory board in the VHL Alliance to bring the clinical community together and establish rational clinical trials so that in 5 years from now, as you ask, we will be able to really understand how to use the weapons we have and have developed also more weapons to add to the WellReg armamentarium.
So you are clearly very passionate about research in the VHL community, and there is a lot that we ask of you. I personally, as the executive director, you are a mentor, you are a friend, you are a role model to me personally and professionally. You are one of the most celebrated researchers across the globe. And so we're always asking of you, but I would like to take this opportunity to say, how can we at the VHL Alliance, the VHL community, and just the community as a whole, what can we do to support researchers like you?
I think that the VHL patients are very lucky to have the VHL Alliance and the way it works. I think it's one of these paradigmatic organizations that are very close to the patient, to the patients. I think that in the VHL Alliance, we're working at several levels of making the public aware, fundraising about the disease, motivating and modifying federal policy about this disease. I think that all these things are necessary. All these things are necessary and they support also our work. The more direct ways to support research, and I think this is very important. As I said before, it's fundraising. I think if we had twice the money or 5 times the money, the speed of discovery would double or it would be 5 times more. Our limitation is not the ideas, our limitation is not the techniques, our limitations are pragmatic, are people that they work on it and the age that they have to expand. So on a pragmatic level, philanthropic donations and money is very important. On a more emotional and very essential level, the support and the recognition of the work by the Alliance, by the patients, is very important. I have to tell you that we published prominent papers, we got money, we saw the VHL, the Well-Erect trial. One of the most emotional moments in my professional life as a VHL clinician, which I will never forget, is the moment that with this new medication, one of my patients that I know her and I see her for 15 years, 18 years, said in the clinic, "Oh my God," says, "when I met you, I thought I would never have to worry about pension because I will never be old enough to require a pension." And I said, "Well, I have really bad news for you. You really have to worry about your pension today." And she started crying. So I think that the word from the patients and the telephone calls we received when the study and the drug was approved was always one of the biggest rewards and the biggest satisfactions that we can have. People were crying on the phone, they were calling to say thank you for all the things that they happen. These are invaluable for a researcher and for a clinician because I have both hats. I mean, it's a great satisfaction. Yeah.
So I love the word invaluable because you are definitely invaluable to all of us, and it goes along with that theme of hope. So if you were to share a message of hope with the VHL community, what would that message be?
I think the VHL community already got the hope and the message of hope. They used to grow up and go one surgery after the other surgery, and now they have a medication that can sometimes make tumors disappear, sometimes hold them down, sometimes make them decrease. I think that the world for the VHL patients changed this September, August actually 13 of 2022 with the approval of this medication, which again is the cumulative work of many, many laboratories. I think people know now that they can take the medication, they can have a better life. It's not the end of the disease. We're going to have to resolve a lot of problems. There are people that may be resistant to this medication. This medication hasn't made the tumors melt away, but it contains them. We will have to add to this. But now almost every VHL patient has a reasonable choice between surgery or taking a pill. And I think this is a new, completely different world. And I know that all the grown-up VHL patients that I have worry a lot about their kids. And there is nothing that a parent would not do for their kids. And I want to tell everybody that these kids are going to grow up in a different world with much better outcome, less complications, and much more normal life. And I think there is no better message of hope in this case.
Well, you are so inspirational, Dr. Iliopoulos. So, we we have to take a little bit of time just to learn a little bit about you personally. So how do you spend your time outside of academia?
I spend a lot of time with my daughter, who is 10 years old. And I think it's probably the best outcome that I have in my life. So I spend a lot of time making sure that I live with her and I share time and I contribute to her growing up and I instill some good attitudes towards life and towards the world. So this is one of my most, really enjoyable activities. I like to go to the movies. I love plays. I read books. And I never put down a nice cocktail, for sure. So that's how I spend time. I actually travel to Greece a lot of times because family lives there, and I had the opportunity back between 2015 2019 to help my country in Greece to develop a modern system of molecular detection of cancer. And I work very close with the Minister of Health and Research and Development, and we established a network in Greece of molecular medicine. We also established an NIH in Greece that Greece didn't have it. So we got a big amount of money from the European Bank and we established this NIH institute that dispenses money in a very transparent, objective, and fair way to researchers in Greece. So I'm proud about this activity. It was also very meaningful to me because I think that we contributed during the previous government in giving a whole other flavor, a direction about what research means in Greece. So between Alexandra, my daughter, the lab, the clinical trial, and Greece, it's been a very busy but very satisfying life.
Yes, yes, you definitely have a very fascinating life. So with that, tell us what's the last movie that you saw and the last book you read?
The last book that I read was Ishiguro's The Buried Giant. I didn't know Ishiguro. I mean, it's a very well-known Japanese writer who lives in London. It was a fascinating book about memory, time, accuracy of events that you can recall in your memory, and how forgetting and remembering and interpreting the past has so many beneficial and so many problematic points. And it is, kind of developed in a very atmospheric way in the 1400s Anglo-Saxonic landscape. So Ishiguro is the last one. The last movie I saw was Macbeth with Denzel Washington, a black and white movie that was sensational in this picture.
Wow.
It was very good. Yeah.
Okay, last personal question. If you could have dinner with someone living or deceased, who would it be and why?
I will choose from the deceased so that I don't offend any living. So I would like to have dinner with two people in the same time in the same table. One of them would be Sigmund Freud, because I think that he really transformed the way that we look at our well-being and at the human soul. And the other one would be painter Goya. I love Goya. I was stunned when I saw this small painting of the time and the truth. or history and the truth. So these would be two people. Many people that are alive that I want to have dinner with them. There is no question about this, and I'm pursuing it. I will have dinner with them.
Well, it has just been to say that it's been an honor to interview you is an understatement. Again, just on behalf of all of us that have been impacted, touched, affected by VHL, we just want to say a heartfelt thank you because you are such an inspiration and a vessel of hope. And so in closing, I want to share just a short story that Dr. Amit Tyrosh shared with me about how you've inspired his work and research. In 2018, I heard Dr. Iliopoulos' talk at the 2018 VHL biannual meeting. Dr. Iliopoulos spoke about one of his patients that suffered from VHL-related hemangioblastoma and his promise to the patient's family to promote research on this tumor. Then Dr. Iliopoulos presented new data on hemangioblastoma and insight on the cells composing this tumor as a direct continuation to his promise to the patient's family. This heart-rending story demonstrated how close the bedside can get to the bench and inspired me in my approach to the way translational research should be conducted.
I am very touched that Tyrosh remembered this. It's a true story. I still remember the patient. I kept my promise to him, came back to the lab. He died, and I came back to the lab and I said, from now on, we work on hemangioblastoma. This is true. Yes, that was a very touching story, and I'm very glad that Tyrosh remembered. Amit Tyrosh is an exemplary physician and researcher, and he's spearheading the efforts with our friends in Israel. And I'm looking actually forward to work with my Israeli friends in Tel Aviv to help them and build up the VHL alliance there. It will be a great opportunity to actually work with them. I want to thank you. I want to thank you for coming here. I want to thank you for of course, saying all these wonderful things for me and honoring me. I want to thank you for being in the cockpit of the organization that fights for this disease. We're lucky to have witnessed this progress. It's a very nice thing. It gives you inspiration. We're not done. We're going to do more about this, and this is the nice thing, that we're going to do more things about the VHL patients. Let me say something as a final word. Unfortunately, again, my lab was not here today, and they're out. But I want to let you know that a lot of times, the head of the lab and the PI goes ahead and talks about themselves and everything. The people that they do the work, and not only they do it manually, but they contribute ideas to the work, and they actually shape the direction of the research, are the people that they live in the lab here. And I am very, very grateful for people that they were here and they left, and I'm very grateful to the people that they're currently in the lab. We all say I couldn't do it without them, but I really mean I couldn't do it without them. And it's not manual, it's their intellectual contribution, and I'm very, very proud of this team.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mark Palanch. I'm a VHL Alliance board member, and I'm the chairman of the fundraising group for the VHL Alliance. Thanks so much for joining us tonight on this great event. I hope you've all enjoyed learning more about Dr. Iliopoulos and all of the great advancements in VHL care and research that he's providing. This month is VHL Awareness Month, and we have set a goal to raise $50,000 that will go directly toward VHL research. I'm asking you to consider making a donation to help us reach our goal and support our research efforts. As you heard tonight, the drug Welireg is a direct result of the advances in VHL research. And with your help, we can continue to support more research projects and make more progress towards our ultimate goal of curing cancer through VHL research. To make a donation, you can go to the link in the chat feature or visit our website, vhl.org/donate. Thanks again for your support of the VHL Alliance, and I will turn it back over to Chandra to close out our main stage event.
Thank you, Dr. Iliopoulos. I would like to take a minute to say a special thank you to the sponsors for this Warrior Call event. Thank you to Merck, MGH, Dana-Farber Cancer Institute, American Society of Clinical Oncology, Kidney Cancer Association, Seth Horwitz, Powerful Patient, and MD Anderson. And a thank you to all our patients, families, and friends who've also supported this event. We appreciate you. Now, for those of you who have purchased a ticket that includes the dessert portion of this event, you will now be directed to the breakout room. For the rest of you, thank you so much for joining us this evening, and we hope that you have a wonderful night. So we'll go ahead and get started. Yes, it's 8 o'clock. Want to just welcome everyone to the dessert portion of the Warrior Call event. So first, I'd like just to take a moment to talk about how we got to this place with the Warrior Call. As we all know, the pandemic, it has been really difficult for everyone who's been impacted. And so the Warrior Call was an opportunity for us to really bring our community together virtually, and also just create that pipeline of connection with celebrated researchers and physicians in the VHL community. So last year we hosted our first virtual event with Dr. Bill Kalin. And then for 2022, it was our honor to invite Dr. Iliopoulos to be our celebrated honoree. So I want to thank all of you for being here this evening. Again, you know, during this time, virtual events, there are a lot of interesting dynamics and things that go on behind the scenes, but it's so important for us to have this time together. So with that, we will move into our live portion. And this is an opportunity for everyone that is with us this evening to engage in a dynamic conversation with Dr. Othon Iliopoulos. So welcome, Dr. Iliopoulos. Thank you so much again for being with us this evening. I want to turn it over to you, as I know you would like to share some additional information and introduce your colleagues.
Thank you, Sandra. Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. I'm very honored to be here. I'm very fortunate, and actually I think that I want to say that I have been very fortunate to join the board meeting of the VHL Alliance approximately, I think the same time that Sandra was coming as an executive director. The whole group is an amazing group of diverse people that they fight for cure of VHL from a lot of angles of the disease. They bring their expertise in science, in organization, in marketing, in finance, in healthcare policy, in lobbying. And it has been for me a very enriching experience to be part of this group of people. I want to thank you for choosing to feature me tonight. The work that you have been doing about VHL has been a collective work in the field. Not a single individual can say that she or he in a single-handed move the field forward. I think we all join hands and we all step on the shoulder of each other in the most well-taken meaning of this to bring the pyramid higher and closer to the cure. And talking about collective work, I would like very much to introduce three of my colleagues that they have been battling with me the basic research field of VHL disease. We're here at Mass General Hospital. We have a laboratory that we conduct basic research at MGH, and in the Yoki Center of the Mass General Hospital Cancer Center that you see behind me, we actually have two clinics, two centers. One of them is the VHL clinic that more globally sees patients with hereditary kidney disease. And we also have a hemangioblastoma center with a very dedicated and focused effort to work on the hemangioblastoma disease in the clinical front, as we have a multidisciplinary structure of both of these clinics with surgeons and ophthalmologists, endocrinologists, and medical oncologists and geneticists working in both the hereditary kidney cancer center and also the hemangioblastoma center. Speaking about hemangioblastoma, which it's one of the two major disease entities in the VHL, along with renal cell carcinoma, I want to take the opportunity to introduce the first of my colleagues. This is Dr. Evmorphia Konstantakou. The daily name is Evie. And I think that Evie needs to turn on her camera so that we can see her. Evie joined the...
Hi, everyone. Thank you.
Where are you, Evie? There she is.
Here.
Oh, there she is. So Evie joined us, several years ago, and single-handed, she actually has been spearheading the research in hemangioblastoma. She has been charged with a huge questions to find out what are the cells that they give rise to this disease, and also to understand the ways that the cells are growing and how to tackle this growth, not only as a HIF2 alpha generated disease, but beyond this. I am very fortunate that Evie came with us. She has done an unbelievable work, and she's actually now, I think, making a big progress in the disease. She's going to be able very, very shortly to give us publicly the answer to these important questions. Her work is worth supporting, and she has been doing a stellar job, and she's an amazing citizen. So I want to take this opportunity to thank Evie for her partnership with me all these years, and for her real intellectual contribution in the research of this VHL tumor, which we know from a lot of people that even attended this meeting that this is a very serious disease. Thank you, Evie.
It's my pleasure. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. And of course, I would like to thank also the VHL Alliance for supporting our research the past years. And this is very important. And we hope we will be able to have this contribution for the coming years, that it's a great our research for the patients. Thank you very much.
Needless to say that the contributions, that the funding and the money that went to VHL Alliance and through the VHL Alliance to Evie's research produce an incredible results that you're going to see soon. So I don't think that there would be a better return for investment than having Evie supported. Then I would like to introduce two more people that they're here with us today. One of them is Tupa Basuroy, and I would like to ask Tupa to turn on her camera too and be brought in the panel. And the other one is Dong Kook Min. We call him DK. Hi, Tupa. We call him DK in the lab. Are you somewhere around here, Don Cook? I hope he's here, and I hope he's joining us. Tupa and DK work on both renal. Oh, there he is. Hi, DK. They work both on hemangioblastomas and renal cell carcinomas, from an angle that's very unique in our lab. They try to understand the metabolism of the cancer cell. As you know, we made some seminal contributions to the field by showing that the cells that they're missing VHL are fed by glutamine, and we understood a whole kind of complex pathways of how the cells reshape their metabolism. And this reshaping of the metabolism is giving us a unique opportunity to target it, because it's quite different from the normal cells. This is not theory, this is practice. There are drugs that we can target this metabolism, and Tupa and DK pile on the previous observations, and the goal of their work is to find out how, in a very precise surgical way, we can starve the hemangioblastoma cells and the kidney cells from nutrients without affecting the normal cells. DK gave his lab meeting today, and as a matter of fact, Tupa has her meeting coming up next week, and we heard new and exciting models and hypotheses of how we can attack kidney cancer cells and hemangioblastoma cells. I want to thank both of you for being with us. As I said during my interview with Chandra, a team is not only the face of the PI, a team is also the face of the people that they contribute to the work intellectually and manually. There are many other people that I want to thank, that they have been past and current members of our team, but I just wanted to welcome these three colleagues that were working very close these days. I want to thank all of you, and please stay and join me in the discussions.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you both.
All right.
Wonderful. So now we'll move into the Q&A portion. So we'll start with our first question.
What function does wild-type VHL have in the cell?
So wild-type VHL has a function that the hemangioblastoma and renal cell carcinoma cells are losing. One of the functions that it has many functions, but let's say the most famous or canonical, as we say in science, function of this protein is that it is a recognition guardian. It recognizes, it kind of patrols the cell and recognizes, tags, and destroys some unwanted molecules. And the best example of this unwanted molecule is HIF, the hypoxia inducible factor. The drugs that we're using these days to treat VHL disease, the Welireg, as you all very well know, is a medication that inactivates HIF. So if you have VHL, you don't have active HIF. If you're losing your VHL and the VHL cells are happy, they're called so because they're losing their real natural protein, they express very high levels of HIF, and this high level expression of HIF drives the cells to be tumor or cancer cells. And Welireg essentially blocks this inappropriate inactivation of HIF. In a previous talk, and I hope that this is not too simplistic, I named VHL the vacuum cleaner of the cell. Goes into all the places and swaps the molecules that they are not wanted. And so if the vacuum cleaner is broken, you have a lot of dust around, and HIF is a dust that essentially turns the house into a cancer cell. HIF is not the only target. VHL has other targets too, and many groups have worked on these other targets. But the reason that we're talking a lot about HIF is that because that was the first one that came into stage. It's very well studied. We can target it finally after many years because of the medication that we are having. It is not the only story in VHL. As I said before, metabolism is actually rewired based on the expression of HIF and other functions of VHL. And therefore, we have plenty of targets to go after these days. What other question do we have, Josh?
At what point do you recommend taking belzutifan for hemangioblastomas that are becoming problematic or symptomatic? And what size kidney tumors?
Right. So these are burning questions that are in the mind of everybody. As I said before, in many times, Welireg or belzutifan, as I call it, the chemical name, is a great tool. It really works. It inhibits drastically HIV, and it either shrinks the tumors or puts them to sleep. That means it puts the brake of the tumor and it doesn't allow them to grow. Now, when to use it and how to use it, for the time being, is an art, is a clinical art based on the experience that we have with VHL. And I hope it doesn't remain an art for a long time. We do need well-designed clinical trials, and we're on the way to essentially design these trials and implement it to understand how to use it best. For example, do we have to use it all the time? Do we have to use it intermittently? Can we stop Welireg without having tumors bouncing back? Is it any benefit to start it early than start it later? So these are all questions that each one of us has a little bit of a gut feeling based on the clinical experience that we have. And we have here at MGH plenty of clinical experience, because since the day that Welireg has been approved, we treated many patients out of protocol with Welireg. Other centers also are accumulating clinical experience. And I think we need to translate this experience in well-designed trials that are going to give us firm answers, so that in 3 or 5 years from now, we need to know the answer to all these questions. We know the answer to these questions, and therefore we know how to treat Welireg, tumors with Welireg. I'm not trying to avoid the question. I'm going to get back to the question and answer it. So for kidney cancers, we know that the cutoff, the safe cutoff that we can allow the tumors to grow up to is 3 centimeters. If we start Welireg, and when we start Welireg, again, it's not very clear, but I would say, let's say generally, I would start when the tumor is growing in front of our eyes, and it's growing and give us a little bit of a comfortable time to stop this growth. What do I mean by this? It usually takes up to 6 months to see some effects of Welireg. It's not like the classic chemotherapy. You can take the patient can take it for a while. The tumor may slow down or essentially stop growing. Then in 6 months, we may see some reduction in the size of the tumor. So I would like to give myself a little bit of a comfort time in front of me. I don't wait for the tumor to become 2.9 centimeters. I would be very comfortable to start somebody with a tumor which is 2 centimeters. Now, as I said before, we don't know. Would the tumor respond better if it's 1 centimeter than 2 centimeters? In the very small trial that we have done so far, and it has been published in New England Journal of Medicine, and understand that colleagues that they co-led this trial, like Eric Jonas from MD Anderson and Dr. Srid from the NIH, RAM, are maybe in this talk. I think they are in this meeting. They will tell you that we haven't seen a lot of difference between the 1 centimeter and the 2 centimeters if we start the tumors. But again, the jury is out. I would like to start the renal cell carcinomas at a point that's going to give me a bit of a comfortable time. Same applies for hemangioblastomas too. If there is a patient who walks in the clinic or the emergency room and he has bad symptoms with headaches, with vomiting, with not being able to walk straight, this is not the time to use Welireg, because it's not an antibiotic. We're not giving it for an infection. It needs some time to work. Now, I don't know if this time for VHL for hemangioblastomas is 6 months. I suspect that this time is much shorter than 6 months, and we have seen quick and good responses in the hemangioblastomas. But again, I would give myself a bit of a time. So I would like to treat somebody who has a growing hemangioblastoma. Now, you see, for both cases, I mentioned the word growing, renal cell carcinoma and hemangioblastomas, and you're going to ask, why growing? Well, because these tumors can sleep for a while. They can hibernate for a long period of time. So I have stable tumors for a long period of time. I'm not sure that this is time to give Welireg. But again, this has to be tested in a real clinical trial. So empirically, what my preference is to treat tumors that they see that they're growing. Now, there is a third question here. The question is, do I always use Welireg for a tumor that's growing, or do I resort to surgery? And again, the answer here is that this is a clinical judgment call. If I have a young person who has one kidney tumor that needs to be attended to, I would prefer probably to send them to surgery and not commit him to a medication for a long period of time. If I have a patient who has multiple tumors in both kidneys, maybe I would prefer Welireg, particularly if this patient experienced before many surgeries, maybe it has some scar tissue, maybe if the kidneys have been insulted and injured from all the surgeries and the renal function is a little bit lazy and the creatinine is higher, maybe I will try to do Welireg first and see how they're going to respond. Same thing about hemangioblastomas. I tend more to treat with medication hemangioblastomas than kidney tumors because, and I apologize to my urologist friends that may attend the call, a craniotomy is a little bit more dramatic operation than an operation in the kidney. So if possible, I will use first Welireg in hemangioblastomas if the symptoms are not dramatic and can have some time to reverse them.
Which belzutifan combination regimens and/or next-generation HIF-2 alpha inhibitors should be on our radar for VHL in the next 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, it's a very good question. So one way to target VHL, to target HIF is Welireg, as you know. There are other ways to target HIF. There are going to be more medications coming up that they target HIF through a different mechanism. As most of you know, the way that Welireg works is that it goes and breaks up the relation between HIF and its partner, another molecule. And this partnership, this binding to the other molecule is required for HIF to be active and turn on all the genes. Now, there are other ways to target HIF. There are medications that what they try to do is to destroy HIF. It's like mimic VHL more directly. They attach to HIF and then they bring HIF in a distraction complex. They act like VHL, and these molecules are actually moving into clinical trials right now. There are medications that they can stop the production of HIF in the cell. Our lab discovered small molecules that they stop the translation of HIF, and we make them better and more powerful. And we're actually in the animal testing field status right now, and we hope that these are going to come to the clinic. So there are going to be many ways to target HIF. And this is not be academic or theoretical, it's practical, because at some point we know from our experience in oncology, when you target something with a drug, at some point, it's very likely that you're going to meet resistance. And the way that the resistance happens is that, these proteins that they're targeted are getting some small change and mutation that actually escape the effect of the small molecule. So having other ways to target the protein, this escaped protein, the resistant protein is very important. So there's definitely going to be second generation and third generation medication to target HIF. As to the combination of the Welireg with other treatments, I think that the list will be unlimited. I don't know if they will come this list to VHL patients right at the beginning. Currently, this is actually tested in combination with immunotherapy or other medication in the sporadic carcinoma, renal cell carcinoma patients. Remember, in most of the VHL patients, we're lucky enough to observe the tumor and treat the tumor when it's localized in the kidney. So we have always surgery in our back pocket, or actually in our front pocket, as a tactic for treating the disease. So you may see less combination of these types of treatment at the VHL at the beginning, but anything that will show that added to Welireg produces a great result, I'm sure that will be tested in VHL patients in the future. So in other words, the story with Welireg is not the end of the effort to treat VHL disease. Is the beginning of a new era. The disease became from a surgical disease that now we can use medication. You remember the movie Casablanca? That the last scene of the movie is when the chief of the police with Humphrey Bogart escape into the darkness of the airport, and they say this is the beginning of a new relation. Well, I think this is what we're seeing here. We're seeing the beginning of a new relation, the new era, with the availability of Welireg.
Thank you so much. Next question, please.
What is the biggest mystery that you want to solve at this point? What keeps you up at night?
This is a very good question. Whoever asked this question, I mean, it's a very good thing. So what keeps me up at night is the fact that Welireg and inhibiting HIF has been proven a very good punch for the tumor, but it had made the tumor to melt away. So the previous actually question fits very well with this one that we're asking right now. What else can I do to increase the efficiency of Welireg, or what other aspects of the tumor can I target? Is it because HIF is only part of the question, so we have to target other things other than HIF, which the answer is yes. Or is it because we haven't targeted HIF very well? What else do we need to tweak in the tumor microenvironment? As I mentioned before, metabolism, for example, or immune cells, or the DNA damage response of the cell. So again, Welireg is the beginning. I've been looking now, 30 years almost, I've been working in the biology of VHL disease. And we never know the complete story. And the more we learn something about the disease, as with every disease, the more complex it becomes. And the idea here is to have the tumors to melt away and not to come back. Particularly in our lab, I'm thinking a lot about cancer metabolism. I'm fascinated about the fact, the world of medicine had the people that they were doing signal transduction for 40, 50 years, the people that they were doing metabolism generally in bacteria, in organisms, for more than 50 years. I mean, this is more than 100 years that we study metabolism. And all of a sudden, we realize that the cancer cell, the signaling, that means the biochemical events of how a protein talks to the other protein, is actually not compartmentalized and away from the metabolism, and that the one system that researchers studied for so many years talks to the other system. What shocking observation. I mean, think of the cell, which is a very efficient machinery that they would have chosen through evolution to compartmentalize the two systems. Of course they didn't. Our brains compartmentalize the system, our professional careers compartmentalize the system, but all of a sudden we realize they're not compartmentalized. They're one system. Metabolism talks, mutations that it produces oncometabolize, talk to the DNA and to the proteins. Proteins change the enzymes that they regulate metabolism. So I think that, what I found fascinating in the latter part of my, professional activities is that a whole new era that was in a lot of us, blind spot open in front of our eyes. And I think that this is fascinating. Whether or not this is going to lead to direct cure of tumor, I don't know. It's a random process. We don't always know, what is going to be leading to a cure, or how plastic and smart the cancer cell will be to evade it. But the more we learn about our enemy and the more closer we keep it, the better it is.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Next question.
Is there anything those of us in the VHL community can do to advocate or provide data for well-structured clinical trials, getting more towards the science versus the art of applying Welireg?
Yes, categorically yes, and thank you for asking this this question. I think that I would ask you to do one major thing: to participate in clinical trials, and to take the risks that they are in participating in the clinical trials. It's always very difficult, in the classic field of oncology, the people that they participated in a lot of clinical trials are people that they were at the end of the treatment line, at the end of the availabilities. A lot of times they didn't have anything to lose. We're not this type of people. We have always surgery. We have Welireg, as I said, these days. So sometimes it may be a little bit challenging to think why somebody would leave their comfort zone of either taking a Welireg or go to trial, or to go to surgery instead of participating in a clinical trial. But I think that if you can do this, this is going to be a great contribution, not only to your own care as patients, but to the future care of our children and of our grandchildren. I mean, the more we learn, the more we know how to treat the bigger family. So I think participation in clinical trials will be very, very important.
Thank you so much, Dr. Iliopoulos. Next question, please.
I am a belzutifan patient. Will my clinical care center be sharing the information about any changes with you and/or the VHL Alliance?
I think yes. I don't know what specific center is this, but what happened so far is several of us, we came together and we created a common database. For example, Mass General Hospital, UPenn, MD Anderson, and the University or the Vanderbilt Medical Center have aligned ourselves to create a common database in which we will insert the information about how to treat how we treated the patients and what's the outcome. So we have an initial preliminary feeling of how Welireg works and what would be answer some of these questions empirically. We'll also talking with more centers into coming together and expanding this experience. And I think that one way or the other, your clinical center will, if it's a comprehensive clinical center, will share this data. We'll not share personal data. All this data, I want to reassure you, are anonymous, so your identity is not going to be revealed. But there are two ways they're going to be shared. Three ways. One of them is by participating in this common experience. Your physician who treats you will talk about her or his experience, and eventually we're going to have clinical trials to answer this question. So your participation is going to be censored and noted, and the things that we learn from you at several levels. Once a month, I don't know if you know this, once a month we have a VHL tumor board. This became, kind of a passion of mine, an idea, because we do tumor boards in medicine. I believe it's a great success. We have people that they join from not only United States, from Europe, from Israel, from Argentina. I think we had participation from Australia. It's become once a month, despite the zone differences, an international VHL board meeting in which physicians present cases and we talk about the cases and how we would treat the patient, which disseminates a lot of this experience we get from treating the patients all over the world. We actually have our case submitted for this month from China. So, I mean, I'm thrilled to tell you that when I started this, I didn't know, what resonance going to have, but this is becoming the only international tumor board meeting that I know. And we will also collect this information and in an anonymous way, present it in the VHL website. So they're going to be almost like booklets and cases for everybody who treats VHL patients to study, or for VHL patients to go and visit and see how their doctors thought about it. I'm sorry to say that for reasons that I think that everybody understands, we haven't allowed patient participation. It's usually the board meetings, we don't do this, and we don't do this for obvious reasons, which is the emotional component will be different. The liability of the physician who does the recommendation is changing. And I think it gives the providers, it's not only physicians, we have geneticists, we have nurse practitioners, so it's health care providers tumor board meeting, and they would feel a little bit more comfortable expressing the opinion they have about the severity of the case if patients are not directly there.
Thank you so much. Next question, please.
Will we ever be able to block the HRE sequences of genes that are the target of HIF1?
I don't know if we will be able to do it. People tried. I mean, it was one of the big questions is how to essentially stop a transcription factor. A transcription factor is a protein that goes and binds into the DNA, and it binds into sequences in the DNA, like exactly what this discussant said, the HRE, the hypoxia response element sequences. It hasn't been able so easily. People tried. They tried with small peptides that they mimic this protein. They tried to essentially, insert like a tool to disrupt this type of interaction. This is still underway, but now with the promise of blocking other parts of the transcription factor. For example, the Welireg that blocks the partnership with the other protein, or targeting directly the factor, or stopping the production of this transcription factor in the cell. I think people found that this is much more rewarding than the effort to block directly the protein with the DNA sequence. Many labs tried, and still the effort is on the way. But I think this is, if I had to invest my targeting effort, I probably would have been done in a little bit more conventional way than this.
Dr. Iliopoulos, so really quickly before we have another question, but I wanted to acknowledge that the last question was from Dr. Zagzag. So he is actually one of our most recent grant recipients and who was able to attend tonight's call. So I just wanted to give an acknowledgement to Dr. David Zagzag for attending.
Bravo, David. We're happy you're here.
Thank you so much. So next question, please.
If you had to describe the personality of our enemy in 3 words, what would they be?
I never underestimate my enemies. So I would say that our enemy is smart, insidious, and resilient. And I would like never to underestimate our enemy. But in the same time, it's a lot of times that we conquer this enemy in the past in many diseases, and now we do it in the VHL. So I would like to actually build a very ferocious picture for our enemy, because I will be so happy when I take it down. I don't want an easy target.
Thank you so much. We still have a few minutes. If we have anyone who would like to ask questions, we can take a few more questions.
Any thoughts?
Well, while we're waiting to see if anyone has any questions, we did have a couple of comments in the chat. So a recent one is I've had several VHL associated surgeries over the years. And the most important thing my wife and I heard tonight is that our VHL positive daughter will not face a future full of surgeries. All of us thank you and your team.
Thank you for making this comment. I have to tell you, this is the dream that we had 30 years ago when we started the research for VHL. I worked at Bill Kalin's lab. I, was the person who started the project from the scratch in the VHL. We had no idea what VHL is or does. Several people grew up and established the labs all over the world. We have wonderful colleagues in other places of the country, at the NIH, at MD Anderson. We have colleagues in Vanderbilt. We have people in Netherlands, Johns Hopkins, and colleagues in the UK that they share the Nobel Prize for all these observations that we made very early in the lab with Dr. Kaling. I mean, we really took on this effort, and I'm a physician scientist. I spent half of my time in the clinic, the other half in the lab. Although, as I told my chairman lately, I mean, I don't know how half and half makes 160, but that's another type of question. And our dream was exactly to be able one day to translate all these findings into a different treatment for the patients. And it happened. Oncology is an area that the revolution happened. I consider myself, and I put a very personal tone because I think the whole night today allows me to be a little bit more personal about these things. I consider myself very lucky professionally, a very lucky person. I entered oncology in 1992 when we had one or two medications for solid tumors that did not work. And right now we're in a time that I don't have the time to learn the drugs that they are approved by the FDA for tumors. The mortality for cancer since 2012 started decreasing. And all this is happening because we don't practice voodoo medicine. We don't practice, non-logical combinations. I think that this is a success of the rational treatment of cancer. We did basic science for many years. We took the science to the clinic. We find out what the clinical problem is, and we go back to the lab and try to resolve it. There's no question that the genome sequencing, it propagated everything forward. It brought us another tool. Technology increased dramatically. We can sequence anybody's genome in 3 or 4 hours in a machine. I so happened, maybe I was a good estimate from my part, that I found myself in the middle of a revolution in oncology. I would like to believe in my secretly non-humble moments that some of us contributed to this revolution with the initial observations that we have made and observations that we're still making. So yes, the pleasure of that is that we're in a point that life is going to be different for the families, and life is going to be different for the kids. And I have to tell you, the day that Welireg was approved, I was actually on vacation in Greece, and I had people that they called me on the cell phone in Greece, and they cried. And I have to say, almost like I cried with them. I had to tell a patient that came afterwards in the clinic when I came back from the vacation. She's a lovely lady who came to the clinic. I know her for 20 years. I take care of her. And she was shocked. She said, I thought I will never need social security. And I never made any plans to have social security because I never thought I'm going to live. To need social security. I said, dear, her name, I have very bad news for you. you're going to need Social Security. So it's different, a different world. Now, again, I don't want anybody in this euphoria to think we are done. We're not done. We're beginning. We're beginning from a very higher and better, position, but we're beginning. And I want you to ask you to participate in clinical trials. Now we need to do the same rational design in the clinical trials like we did in the lab. And we need to work all together to make this treatment better. And the last thing, that since this is also a fundraising event, let's not forget this one. These things need money. The people that they work in the lab need money. The reagents need money. This is science that I can't go to the library and just make a discovery. Although I have to tell you, it was in a library that the discovery was made between the connection of the VHL and angiogenesis. It was one night that I noticed that all my mice had red tumors and nobody else's had red tumors in the big building. And then I went to the Countway Library, and this is where I started reading about the tumors and the vasculature. And the idea came in the library. But to prove this, the idea, it took many years, and it took many millions in funding. So money is important in this. So I want to call you to please support the VHL Alliance, which is going to support us in a very transparent and objective and stringent scientific way. Money doesn't come to me. We have a independent panel of people that reviews every grant. We establish a very paradigmatic process of how to do these reviews. And also money has to come from the government. I will take the moment to say that it pains me every time that I see the NIH budget in the pie of the money that's spent by the government, their budget, to be a small slither. It's almost a radius in this pie. I think that the war against cancer went very well because, Richard Nixon, many years ago, independently of what we think about Nixon politically, said, I'm going to set a war against cancer. I'm going to give money. I'm going to have a strategic plan. So we need support from the government. We know the experiments that need to be done. We know the ideas that need to be tested. It's a question of manpower and time. And manpower and time takes funding. And to me, this is also a very big developmental investment. It's great to invest in technology, and cancer is technology too. But it's a great to invest in cancer. It is lives, it is happier society. And if you take it from the most small and stringent and narrow-minded point of view, the things we discover along by doing cancer research are incredibly invested in the biotechnological infrastructure of our country. We're not based on potato crops anymore. I mean, we're based on technology.
It's wonderful. One of the best.
I don't find a truck that drops potato tomorrow morning in front of my house. I didn't mean that in a negative way.
But I think it's really wonderful that you talked about the need for fundraising, right? Because we are focused on supporting and funding research, and it's critical and it's important. So thank you for stressing the importance of that. I have a couple of comments in the chat, and I still want to give just a couple of minutes while I'm sharing those comments if anyone has any questions before we move to closing. But there's a comment that says, "Thank you, doctor. As always, I appreciate you and am so grateful." And then there's another comment that said, "Thank you for tonight, and to everyone in the lab, so amazing to witness this revolution." Okay, well, looks like we do not have any further questions, but I want to move to our time of giving gratitude and thanks. So first of all, thank you, Dr. Iliopoulos. It was great to have this time to engage with you and to hear your brilliance. Again, we celebrate you and we appreciate you. You are a hero to all of us in the VHL community. So I want to thank you, and to everyone in your lab. Thank you so much for all that you're doing on behalf of the VHL community. We really appreciate you, and it is our desire to support the work that you are doing ongoing. This is a partnership, and we fully support all of your efforts and research, and we thank you for your time and your dedication. And now, before I move into thanks, Dr. Iliopoulos, if you have final words.
Okay, thank you. I was going to say, can I say something? I am humbled. I don't know if I deserve it, but I am humbled by the fact that you chose to put us in the highlight tonight, and I wanted to put my colleagues that they work with me. I want to echo everybody who works in the VHL field, not only me, all the scientists and physicians that they are in the discussion tonight, and say that we care. We don't care only about our publications and our careers, we care about the outcome. The biggest happiness that we'll have is to see our patients essentially doing much better and having to offer them something. So I think this journey, as I said, will continue. I want to thank you for having us tonight very much. And I hope that we will continue, and I will ask everybody's participation in all the activities of the VHL Alliance and your support.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I want to move into thanking our staff for all of their support with this event and just the day-to-day. So Joshua Mann and Jordan McGuire. I also want to thank our board and for all of your ongoing support and your leadership. I'd like to thank our committee members. We put together a special committee to help us with planning this virtual event. So I'd like to begin with thanking Lily Wokenhandle, Mark Palash, Marissa Beasley, and Caitlin Murphy. And then lastly, I would like to thank all of our sponsors, Merck, Seth Horwitz, Dana-Farber Cancer Institute, Massachusetts General Hospital, ASCO, MD Anderson Cancer Center, Kidney Cancer Association, Judy Kessler and Lee Authors, Powerful Patient, Cafe Canna, and Bio by Kaya. So I'd love to thank everyone for your participation tonight. I have one final note. We will be holding a town hall, our follow-up to our first town hall on belzutifan. We'll hosting that town hall on May 25th. So you will receive information about that. Please sign up, as we will continue to have discussions about WellyReg. And as always, it is an honor on behalf of the VHL Alliance for us to serve all of you. And we're so thankful for your support. So with that, we want to conclude our Warrior Call event. Have a lovely evening.